What's up, everybody? This is the kombat4rare Gamer Dad special podcast. My name is Mark Man, and I'm here with some good friends of mine. Justin, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yes, I am a dad. That is, just to let you guys know, that's why it's called Gamer Dad Special. But yeah, I've been playing fighting games for over 20 years. I don't see myself stopping, and I'm really bad at talking about myself, but I play in tournaments, travel around the world playing some video games. It's been a dream come true, supporting the family with that. And then, yeah, I mean, ever since COVID, just spending a lot of time with my family, doing the whole Twitch and YouTube thing. It's been fun remembering all the things that I really do love about fighting games, because I never got a chance to really sit down and play a lot of these fighting games that I probably played as a kid, but I don't remember. But now with the knowledge I have with fighting games, it makes it even more crazier. Oh yeah, and then I won tournaments at Evo. That's it.
Awesome. Awesome. Max, you want to give yourself a little bit of intro for everyone that's watching?
Sure. My name's Maximilian Dude. A little bit of a similar backstory to Justin. I think Justin's undercutting himself 20 years ago was like 2002. I think Justin was winning a lot of tournaments before that. In a similar fashion, yeah, we've been playing fighting games for a really long time. I think the first time I remember taking things really seriously was even back in 1995, 1996, going to locals for Killer Instinct on the Super Nintendo. So that sort of carried with me extremely hardcore until the early 2010s, late 2000s, when I started making videos, and then a lot of people started watching them, and then this Little Assist Me series showed up, and then I've been effectively doing the same stuff and making content and streaming for the past nearly 10 years now. So, yeah, in a similar boat with Justin. Justin's on the content creator ship now. He's at the mast with me, like playing all these old weird games, and we're having a lot of fun with them. So, yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. And Tommy, you want to talk to a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm not a competitive fighting game like Max or Justin, a content creator, but I love fighting game. I mean, I've been playing video games since, I don't know, I feel like I was born, in 1985. The first Super Mario came out. So I might have been playing one since I was a baby. Who knows? But yeah, part of this podcast is about kombat4rare. My son suffered from a rare disease, so we're on this journey to find a cure for him. So thank you all for being on this podcast.
Happy to be here. And I didn't really talk about myself a little bit earlier, but, I love fighting games. I've been into fighting games since, the Street Fighter 2 days. So I met a lot of these guys through fighting games. Actually, I met every single one of you through fighting games. And, fighting games is one of those things where it's really impacted my life. And I've really come to love it and accept it as, what I do in the world. So, I've been part of the Evo team for a while now, but even before then, I was supporting the fighting game scene with Mad Cats and, even running local tournaments way back in the day. But we'll get into the fighting game background a little bit more for each one of us as we kind of delve into this. But one of the first questions I wanted to ask collectively as a group to all of you guys is, what really got you guys into gaming? What was your first fighting game, and when did you know that gaming was your thing? When it came to there's so many aspects of gaming. When did you know that this was something that you really loved and had near and dear to your heart? So maybe we'll start with Tommy. You want to answer that question?
Yeah, I used to hang out with my cousin. He would go to 7-Eleven almost every day, and the game that we would play was Mortal Kombat. And I just fell in love, and he would always use Raiden, which I'll talk about it later, but that's, how my son's name came about. And that's the first game I really fell in love with was Mortal Kombat. I mean, it's not a game for kids, but it is what it is. I love the blood and gore as a kid, dressing up like some of those characters doing Halloween. So, that was it. That got me into fighting games.
Cool. Max, what about you?
Yeah, I love it how everyone has that story. We all do. Everybody has the 7-Eleven story, which is amazing from that time frame. I'd say in a general perspective, the first time you're really paying attention that video games exist was definitely an NES. So we're talking late 80s, maybe very early 90s. I think I got mine. I had a friend that had one, so it was obviously the hand-eye coordination. I remember still that not making any sense, and having to learn that stuff with your hands. And then eventually, arcades obviously being a huge focus of my childhood. I feel like I spent the majority of my childhood collecting quarters and just taking those quarters to arcades and finding ways to get quarters to go back to arcades to play games. So I'd say obviously Street Fighter 2, that's the big one to even predate a little bit of Mortal Kombat, where I was obviously paying attention, and this game was beautiful and gorgeous, and obviously the first revolution of fighting games. But if we're talking about like where we realized that gaming was about, or even fighting games were about to be like an integral part of our lives, I think it was after I worked at an electronics boutique, which was like my first real like big job, right? Actually sitting at retail or something like that. And then, after I got out of it, I got like a desk job, and I pretty much wanted nothing more to get back like into the industry in some way, even though it's like the most basic way you possibly can, like the most starter level. I wanted that. And that's pretty much what I did career path wise after that. And, ever since.
Nice. Justin, you got any stories that you want to tell us about how you got into all this?
Yeah, I mean, like Max said, when it comes to gaming, when you first played NES, man, like that was the boom, bro. NES, when you first get the console and you get the cartridge with the Mario and Duck Hunt combo, right? That's the game. That's the one that really got me into gaming. It's like, man, is there different type of video games out there, right? And then my grandma used to take me to the arcade called Chinatown Fair, and it would just have like all these machines inside. I'm like, oh my god, this is like literally Disneyland, right? For me, like growing up as a kid, just going there, seeing all the Pac-Mans, all the Street Fighters, all the Mortal Kombats, all the racing games, random pinball machines, and here and there. But yeah, I would say the first fighting game was probably Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting. And I just saw M. Bison, and he was doing Psycho Crusher, and I thought that was like the coolest looking move out there. And I remember my first match. That was my first time ever playing. When I finally figured out to hold back for 2 seconds and press forward punch, like I thought I was the best, because that's how you act. Like if you play Bison against CPU, they can't block it. You actually just win the whole game just doing Psycho Crusher. So I thought I actually found the forbidden cheat to beat people. So I used it against a person, and they would just do, sure you can. I was like, oh my god, the reality check was so real. But that was probably when I finally was like, oh my god, I want to play more fighting games because it was so fun. But yeah, I would say Hyper Fighting was the one that did it for me.
Nice. I also got into it in the NES days. I started with, oddly enough, my first game was pro wrestling. Then I went to Mario Brothers and Duck Hunt, and then I started playing pinball and all these other games. But when I started discovering the fighting games, it was Street Fighter 2, then shortly after that, Mortal Kombat. But it wasn't until Mortal Kombat and the fatalities started coming about. There was this really interesting thing where, people were like, hey, how did you do that? How did you pull off the fatality? Because it didn't show it on the arcade machine anywhere, right? It only showed some of the special moves. And then you started going to like the bookstores at the mall, trying to figure out how to do the fatalities. There, people would go there with lists on how to do them, and it became such a very interesting subculture where you would see people in the arcades, and you'd think like, hey, that guy knows how to do it. I'm going to ask him how to do it. And it kind of grew from there. It became a real social experience for me and my friends, and it just continued onward. I mean, I think after that, I really got into Tekken, and then people started doing 10-hit combos, and I started seeing that. I was like, whoa, what is all this stuff? And same thing, I started trying to learn it, look up things online, the dawn of the internet, and then just finding competition from there. And I think I never looked back since. So I think the discoverability and being able to kind of discover things with fighting games is really what made me fall in love with not just gaming, but just fighting games in general. And like Max, I got a taste of it that way. I got an office job, and then I did not like it. I wanted to be in gaming, and I think that's where my heart was. And, the crazy part thing about all this is there really was no roadmap back then for gaming. Like, what do you do if you want to get into gaming? I think a lot of it is just sheer luck and timing, right? I don't know how you feel about that, Max.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like, I remember even in the mid 2000s, like going to art design school that also had gaming classes, right? So I was just learning basic things like Maya and very simple programming and just generalization. But you can tell even they didn't have an idea of like where to focus those efforts. Like, yeah, there's this big industry that's obviously booming here and is now, getting close to eclipsing the film industry. But, how do you get into it? I don't know. You just get to make some friends. That was pretty much it. You have to make some friends.
Yeah. And again, making friends and being able to, for a lot of us now, making a living through gaming, it's just something amazing to see. And, we're going to have a lot of fun stories to tell, not just our friends, but also our family and people that watch and follow us as we grow older. So just to kind of reel it back a little bit and talk about Kombat4rare, specifically the combat portion of it, I got to ask you guys, do you guys have a favorite Mortal Kombat or maybe just a Mortal Kombat moment in your lives that you guys have that maybe sticks out to you. Justin, you want to start?
So obviously, growing up, it was like the feud of Capcom and Mortal Kombat, right? I was obviously more the Capcom guy, but I played Mortal Kombat as a kid, right? Obviously, going to 1, 2, Ultimate Trilogy on the PS1, and even 4, right? 4 was surprisingly pretty fun with the weapons and everything like that. I never really got into the PS2 eras of the Mortal Kombat. That was kind of the dark ages of fighting games during those times, right? Even Capcom, after they didn't do anything really. But my favorite Mortal Kombat game of all time is probably once I started streaming was Mortal Kombat 10. Like, it was beautiful. Like, everyone had these amazing combos. It was just so fast paced, and like, it was really hype. Like, literally, fatalities and the brutalities. Brutality is probably the best part about the game personally, because it was like certain conditions had to be met in order for you to get the brutalities. So it was just so fun, and when you do get it off, it's like the hypest thing in the world, right? And yeah, I mean, I guess I'm known for moments in general. There is a Mortal Kombat moment where I bullied an 8-year-old kid, unfortunately, but
I watched this live.
Yeah, where I threw rocket launchers as Jax. But I mean, think of it as like I did a service. It's a mature game. 8-year-olds should not be playing this game, and at least I didn't do the brutality. I thought about it. I was like, I had to EX, because you have to do EX, aim at the air, and then boom, explosion everywhere. And I was like thinking really hard about it. I was like, no, I don't want to do the brutality for an 8-year-old kid. But I felt I kept it. I was responsible. I was making sure that like he didn't see any other fatalities that he shouldn't see at his age. But that was probably the MK moment that people know of me when it comes down to it.
It was a great generational lesson, I gotta say. The famous words, "You're gonna learn today."
Yeah.
You're gonna learn today, and definitely, I like that. You got to respect your opponent and always give him your best, and that was a great example of it, Justin. Tommy, how about you? Do you have a Mortal Kombat moment that sticks out to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was best at Mortal Kombat 3. I was at the age where I could like do the moves and I could beat people in the arcade. So Mortal Kombat 3 was my thing, and I remember going to Toys R Us with my parents at the time, right? They're like, hey, it's your birthday, November 25th. You get to pick out one thing. And here I am, going down the aisle. I had a chance between a Power Ranger Megazord, which I have a collection of them in my bag now because I'm old and I can afford them, or like a Super Nintendo game, which was still pretty expensive at the time. I'm like,
Yeah.
Power Ranger, Mortal Kombat 3 on Super Nintendo. So pick Mortal Kombat 3 on Super Nintendo. So I will always remember that moment because my parents gave me one option. Pick one thing. I chose Mortal Kombat over Power Rangers.
There you go, a wise decision. So no offense to any of the Power Ranger fans that might be listening and tuning in. For me, one of my favorite Mortal Kombat moments, I gotta say, was actually the last time I took a game seriously and actually competed. I competed in the Mortal Kombat 9 national tournament, which Justin ended up winning. That was the PDP tournament. I ended up getting 9th place at that tournament. And I was stressing the last 2 weeks leading up to the event because I was practicing. Like, we have to use this controller. We're forced to use this controller. But just having that competitive feeling again, something that I didn't feel for years before that, and being able to compete. And there's this old term about save it for nationals. And, I went to a few tournaments prior to that and just seeing everyone saving their tech and saving their strategies going into it. And I thought that was just a fun time, and it really resonated with me. This is why I love fighting games. This is why I love competing in fighting games. How about you, Max? What do you got?
Yeah, I echo that statement. Like, MK9 felt like the return of competitive Mortal Kombat, when it was maybe missing a bit in the PS2 era. I'd say for me personally, like, the Mortal Kombat memories go all the way back to the SNES days where the blood was gray. It was like sweat, and I had to wait until Mortal Kombat 2 came out to eventually get like either the Genesis or the Super Nintendo version of MK2 because the game just played better. It looked better. There's more stuff you can do, like hunting down fatalities, the wonderful era of secrets, like 90s era virality to games, which is just so magical and only something you can get from that time frame. And I would say there was a pretty big drop off after the UMK3 era, right? Once MK4 and stuff like that, I just did not really pay much attention because there was obviously a huge boom on the Capcom side where, you became like a Capcom and Namco hardcore because those games were firing on all cylinders around that time frame. But I had some friends that were obviously super big into MK9. And there was a specific moment where I was streaming a lot, and yeah, MKX was coming out, and I felt like I wanted to give Mortal Kombat a chance. Like, this seems like they have so much fun with MK9. I'd like to, be a part of it because I want to like Mortal Kombat. I just need to find a gateway. So after liking Injustice, yeah, MKX just took off. It's my favorite Mortal Kombat game of it all. It has some of my favorite characters in fighting games of all time. I can play like a ton of characters in the game too. It's genuinely one of my favorite fighting games. It was also one of the first console games to introduce like rollback netcode, one of the big, fighting game franchises. And I'd say in terms of big moments leading up to the hype of MKX, me and the same friends, Kenny and Steve of Yo Video Games, who we stream with all the time, we did a boss rage where we were trying to get through Challenge Tower 300 and MK9, which is a ridiculously difficult, very long, and exhausting challenge in Mortal Kombat 9 through the hardest parts of it. And yes, we were up until 6 a.m. trying to triumph ahead of this thing, and it was probably one of my best memories of Mortal Kombat was conquering that with friends, and just the sheer moment of Shao Kahn's dead, that POS, So yeah, a lot of great moments for MK.
Yeah, speaking of which, you guys should look that up on YouTube. Definitely a great moment in rage-inducing gaming. So make sure you guys check that out. I want to kind of switch it up a bit and talk more about the industry. So particularly for Max and Justin, how did you guys get into the business of gaming or within the industry to where you are today? You guys want to talk about that a little bit? I'll let you start, Max.
Sure. I guess like the very beginning part for me was Electronics Boutique. That got me into E3. It got me into industry trade events and just being sort of connected to the world in general that is this industry. And that was around 2001, 2002-ish. But beyond that, like I actually started working on online, what is it called? I forget what they called it, virtual world, before they called it open world or anything like that, gaming in the late 2000s. And I worked on a little game called Habba Hotel for quite a long time. And that eventually, like until that just disappeared, I started making videos related to Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So funny enough, right around that time frame, it got the attention of Capcom. Capcom got a hold of me, and they essentially wanted to hire us to make like official videos for the expansion for Ultimate Marvel 3. And yeah, pretty much been riding that wave ever since for the most part.
Awesome. That's a lot of people might not know that about you. I mean, you've been doing a lot of stuff, particularly with the Killer Instinct franchise. And again, I love what you do. So it's great to kind of see that and kind of hear the story and the progression. It's fun.
I made me forget about that. I made trailers for KI.
Yeah, you did.
I made the story mode for KI. Like, wow, like I forgot about that. But yeah, like it just was one thing after the other. One thing led to another.
Yeah. So Justin, I got to ask you, a lot of people probably know about, your competitive life in gaming, but a lot of people might not know you have quite the experience when it comes to working with game companies and for game companies. Do you want to talk a little bit about your background in gaming?
Oh man, I think it's all luck. Personally, because I don't know, I never thought I was gonna take gaming to this level. It was just more of just like an extreme, super fun part of my life where I'm like, man, gaming really is part of my life. But overall, I mean, I got like hit up by like Enway to help make Power Rangers Battle for the Grid. And then I get hit up by Arcade 1-Up to like kind of like make their cabinets, especially their fighting game cabinets, just a better on the QA side for the software side as well too. So I get hit up a lot from just kind of for consultations when it comes down to gaming, and I think it's based off just kind of my experience with just playing fighting games, and also probably just getting that first gig, right? Even with Nicholas with Crystal Crisis, because it's a puzzle, it's pretty much very puzzle fighter-ish, and they needed somebody that knew how to play those type of games. So I guess from playing all those video games and having experience with them, and somebody out there being a fan of me gave me that opportunity that led open all these doors. Like I said, it's all luck, because literally I went to the arcade at 10 a.m. on this random Saturday, and I saw a bunch of people outside at Chinatown Fair, and I'm like, why is there so many people outside at 10 a.m.? Oh, usually I'm the only one at the arcade because there was no training mode back in the day. And they're like, I'm trying to, we're all gathering up to go to a tournament. And from there, that's kind of where everything took off, because that was when I went to my first tournament, and it was like the most amazing experience I ever had in my life. It was an eye opener from there.
Yeah, I like how you brought up that it was luck, but I gotta say, based on experience, luck is definitely a skill, and it's a good skill to have to be able to have that. You have a good amount of points allotted into that, so I gotta give you props for that, Justin.
It's the feng shui in the house. You know what I mean? That's what
There
it
you
comes
go.
down to.
So I gotta ask then. So we're all dads here, you know. I gotta ask about our children. Like, you know, did you guys ever think about what you were gonna name your kids? Did you have any, you know, fighting game references in mind when you were naming your kids? I guess I'll start off real quick. My daughter's name is Kylie. I have an older daughter. I've been a dad for a while now. She just turned 21 this year. Originally, if she was gonna be a boy, I was gonna name her Jin from Jin Kazama in Tekken 3.
I love it.
Nice.
But that ended up not happening. I had a beautiful daughter, and I love her. She's like my everything. But for the longest time, we called her Kylie Jin. What was her nickname? So she has ties to, of course, the things that I loved in life, especially during that time, which was Tekken 3 and Tekken Tag. So Justin, how about you?
To be honest, me and the wife were just thinking about names, and we didn't know the gender yet. So we were just like, okay, for a girl, what should it be? And we didn't want kind of like a Jennifer or anything, like a common name, right?
Yeah,
a commonly used name. So I just started throwing out names. It was just, there was no sense of it. So I just said Harper, and then she liked it. And then for a boy, it would be Jace. So Jace, if we do have a boy, it would be Jace. So that would be the boy's name, because it would be cool to have another like Jay Wong. So that's what we were trying to go for.
Wow, awesome! Didn't know that. Max, how about you?
Yeah, all you people with the bold efforts of naming your character, your children after fictional characters like fighting game characters. I just couldn't do that, you know. So I named my daughter Ripley. Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't even. I'm trying to remember like what the thought process behind it was. We were having a really tough time naming our children, and whether or not we was going to be a boy or a girl. Like I actually think like it was maybe going to be Dante or something like that if it was a boy. But at the same time, it was my sister that came up with what about Ripley? And me and Jessica just like looked at each other. like that's a really good idea. So we actually looked up what the name means and all that kind of stuff. So yes, all the nerdy dad and mom names are eventually coming through. I've actually run into several people that have actually named their daughter Ripley now throughout the industry. It's really, they're like right around my age. I'm like, how weird is that? So I guess it just makes sense, you know, like having all this like fandom and people that grew up with these like powerful characters. It feels good to name your kid after something that represents something, you know, that you think is great.
Absolutely. Now, Tommy, I got to ask you, because your son's name is Raiden.
I love it.
Yeah,
Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so, well, we have a daughter who's 4.5 now. Her name is Jordan. Regardless was a boy or a girl at that time, it's going to be Jordan. It just happens to be a girl, so we put a Y for Jordan after Michael Jordan, of course. And then when Raiden came about, we knew we were having a boy, so we were like super excited. We were thinking of names. My wife liked the common name. She liked the like Trevor. She liked the T. I'm like, okay, what about Titus, right? From like Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy.
What was it? 9 or 10? I can't remember.
That was 10.
It was 10.
10. And she's like, no. And then came back with different names. I was like, okay, I grew up. Raiden has been such a big influence in my life as a character, as a fighter. I'm like, honey, what about Raiden? She thought about it for a few days. She's like, no, that's an awesome name. Okay. Now, she doesn't play much games. She doesn't know about fighting game. But she said okay to Raiden. So I was like, awesome. And then we had a baby shower. And then we announced the name, Raiden. Someone was like, you know that's a fighting game character name from Mortal Kombat? She's like, what? I was like, too late now, hon. Boy's name is just Raiden.
Spilled the beans.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure she loves it now, but I mean, I think at the time, think of the shock factor. Like what kind of fighting game?
Shock
how did
factor.
you have to explain back? Yeah. How did you have to explain that?
No, she just loved it. She didn't say anything. I was like, Raiden just means so much, right? It could be the fighting game character. It could be the God of Thunder. It could be other gaming character, right? There's Raiden from Metal Gear Solid. There's the Raiden like shooting, playing game. Just a lot.
Awesome.
She just sounds awesome. She just loves like the way it sounds.
Yeah, it's a great name. I think it just rolls off the tongue, and it makes you think of so many cool things that have happened, not only in gaming. I mean, in entomology and just history in general.
Start with the I.
Yes,
Start with the
I.
Not the
not the
MK1
OG with the
spelling?
REY.
Not the Y.
Not the OG one. Nope.
Cool. I got another question for you guys then, and this is particularly for Max and Justin, and maybe myself. Is how do you guys balance your job, streaming, traveling, and being a dad at the same time? Because that's pretty tall order. I guess I'll start. I'm very lucky because I got all my travel out of the way. My daughter's older now, so actually I did all my traveling just because I was a single father. I had to support my daughter. I was very lucky because I had such a supportive family, and they were able to kind of watch her and take care of her while I was traveling. And fast forwarded now, my daughter is actually the one that kind of helps me balance life because I get to do things that she likes to do. She went out to Evo for the first time this year. She really loved it and enjoyed it. She just started streaming a few weeks ago, and I'm kind of bonding with her, being able to play those games and engaging with her community that she has as well. And it's just been such an amazing feeling because, this is a person that I created, and she's really into the things that I love as well, and being very community driven as well. And I just love it. And I think, having that bond of just not only is she my daughter, but she's also one of my closest friends. It's really made me love being a dad even more than I thought, because for the longest time I was thinking like, man, I'm traveling so much. I missed so much of her youth, but just living in the now is just so amazing. So Justin and Max, since you guys are maybe more new at being a dad, how are you guys balancing it? How's it going for you guys? Justin, you want to start?
It's tough. It's not easy. That's for sure. Just because, like, we don't have a standard 9 to 5 job. It's kind of like pretty much, as time takes it. Sometimes it's like all over the place, right? You don't know when it comes down to it. Luckily, I was able to kind of stop the traveling for quite some time because obviously the pandemic happened, and I was able to just be home more, right? Be a stay-home dad and just kind of focus on just like working from home. Able to work from home actually. Luckily, the consultation, they're like, yeah, you don't have to come in the office. I was like, okay, great, sign me up. Streaming, you can work from home as well too. Doing YouTube stuff and online tournaments is such a huge thing. So luckily that happened where I was able to kind of like adapt, because at that point we're like, man, where does the FGC go from here when everything is just closed down, no travels, and probably all the sponsors are probably like, yeah, we're not going to sponsor you this year because of like the no travel situation. So it did work out for me that I was able to kind of like spend more time with Harper and also work at the same time. But I would say I'm probably more busier than ever, even when I am home. So like there's times where like me and Harper will like we always have a set time where we play with like kind of like dinosaur fighting. She likes the dinosaur fight. So we do that for like a few hours. And there's times where she'll come in and I'm like, come on, Dad, let's play. And then I'm like, oh, I can't. I have to work. We'll play later. And then she'll mope away and she'll just sit at the stairs with the door open, like looking sad. And she knows that I'll look back. And then, that's how she gets me. But I would say, yeah, I mean, just you don't really have a social life. I don't really go out. I don't really like, go to the town, go to like bars or movies or stuff like that. Like all the things that you do before you become a dad, that's all gone, right? Completely. It's just like all the conversations I usually have with like friends now are always going to be like based off parent stuff. What am I doing with the family? And yeah, I mean, it's actually also my favorite type of conversation these days too, is talking about just what am I doing? How am I doing as raising a parent? Also talking to new parents as well too, giving them advice on like, this is what I went through. So yeah, that's kind of like my social life at the moment and how I guess balance everything.
Interesting. So Max, I got to ask you now, how about you? How do you balance everything?
Yeah, I felt like I was sort of, forced into the situation we all were because Ripley was a COVID kid and we all were COVID adults at the same time. So, she was born in 2020, like right in the midst of all this stuff happening. I was lucky enough to be there for her birth, to actually be in the room when it all happened, because a lot of people weren't, so I hold that pretty valuable. But yeah, like we've sort of had to hunker down, and I've had to, even as things have changed over the years and are still changing as of right now, there has been a lot of opportunities to go and do some really amazing things that I would probably have not even thought twice about. And I pretty much said no to all of them. I I kind of just stayed home the entirety of this time to be a dad. And I'm lucky, very lucky, to have the opportunity. I'm sorry, of having a wife that has the opportunity to be a stay-at-home mom and sort of be there for her all the time. So I think one of the things that, you know, a lot of parents echo is just, you know, having time for their kids when they're young. You hear that from everybody, where it's like a lot of times, and even Mark was mentioning it, like there might not be the chance because of obligations and responsibilities so that they can have a better life, that you're just not going to be able to be around them all the time. And you want to be there for them as much as possible. And that's I'm kind of conditioning my entire life around that. So there was obviously a solid 10 years of me just grinding out this career thing as much as possible. And the thought of me doing anything else is going to crash and burn, and everyone's going to forget who I am. And oh God, I sort of just let that go before she was born. I hired editors. I tried to work smarter, not harder, because it was always work harder for the entirety of that time. And now, yeah, I actually have most of my days are just spent with them and just hanging out with them and going out with them and being around her. And I'm just very lucky and fortunate that I'm in a situation where I've seen her grow up the whole time. You know, I haven't come back and she's a different person like in 3 or 4 weeks, which happens to a lot of people, you know? So I'm very happy and very fortunate to be in that situation.
You know, even though it's a very small portion of your day or in your lives, I got to say, whenever I get to see, you know, parenting clips on your streams that end up on social media, it's some of the best content I've ever seen. So it's always nice to see that, to, you know, see them growing up as well. So,
thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing. So just switching gears a little bit now, Tommy, your situation is a bit more complex than maybe what we have. Is there any chance you could tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so Raiden was born right before the pandemic. It was like February 26, 2020. So, I mean, there's the COVID virus, but people didn't know much about it. So he was born, so I was lucky enough to be there when my wife was born. You know, the first 3 months of his life, everything was okay. He was developing normally because I have a daughter, so we know what that was like. And then he started to change. He started to contort in weird ways. He started puking like 10 times a day, and he didn't hit any of his milestone. And, you know, we would go to doctors, and they're like, maybe he'll outgrow it, or he has reflux or allergy and all this other stuff. And it went on and went on. And then we'll switch doctors, and then they'll tell us something else. And it was also a scary time because it was like during a pandemic. It was weird, right? You go in, people wearing masks, you don't know who can go in or whatnot, how dangerous the virus is. So it was this extra layer of stress on top of not knowing what was going on with my son. And so, yeah, we spent 10 days in a hospital. I think it was it, I want to say December of 2020? No, actually September of 2020. We spent 10 days in the hospital, did all the tests. They still couldn't find out what's wrong with him. He didn't have brain damage or anything like that. So we were sent home and did the kind of like, hey, let's wait. Again, maybe he'll outgrow it. But like at a year old, like he couldn't hold his head up. He couldn't sit. He couldn't even put his thumb in his mouth, and he couldn't feed well. He would just keep on puking. So we finally did a surgery where we had to feed him through his stomach. So he has a feeding tube. And then finally we switched hospital. We looked at all 20,000 of his gene. So even before we did that, he was unofficially diagnosed as quadriplegic cerebral palsy because he could not control any of his limbs and he was really behind. That was already tough in itself. Like you give life, to your child, you want them to see, the fullest of life. You want to have a normal life. You want to take them to Disney. All that shit just went out through the window, right? Anyhow, we did that test to look at 20,000 of his gene. The news came back. And it felt like, hell, no pun intended, I felt like I was in nether realms, right? It's like he has this disease, there's 30 cases in the world, and it's progressive. Unlike cerebral palsy, what is brain damage, your child has cerebral palsy, he can't walk, he can't control his arm, but it's not progressive. With my son's disease, it's progressive, meaning that he'll die at an early age. You never want to think about that, but that's the situation that I'm currently in, unfortunately, with my son. So, fast forward to now, life is challenging, right? Because both my wife and I work a full-time job. We have a daughter we have to take care of. We have a son we have to take care of. But our son is different. Our son is ultra need, right? We have to take him to doctors all the time, therapy every day, just to keep him, surviving, making sure he's developed, even though he's behind. But it's tough. Like you asked me, I don't sleep. And on top of that, I'm leading the Radiant Science Foundation. trying to find treatment for him, right? Trying to find treatment for other kids suffering from the same disease. And it's like constant work of like fundraising, like we're doing now with kombat4rare. So literally, guys, like there's just no sleep. Because at the end of the day, I'm racing against time to save my son, and knowing if we can do that, we'll be able to save other kids as well. And I wake up, yes, it's a heartbreak, it's a challenge, it's absolutely sucked, it's nothing I want to go through, but that's our purpose now. At least that's my purpose.
So speaking of which, that leads me to my next question, and kind of what I wanted to talk about is why did you start the kombat4rare campaign, and what is the goal of the kombat4rare campaign?
Yeah, so the goal of the kombat4rare campaign is to raise money to fund research, specifically gene therapy research. When we first received the diagnosis, again, it's so rare. There's no research. No one knew what to do. There's no treatment. But there's something called gene therapy. Right now it's available, but it's very expensive. It's more of a personalized medicine. So think about it. He has a gene mutation called UBA5. All of us have it. It's just his is mutated. So in theory, it sounds simple. You can just replace that bad gene with a new copy of the gene. You have to do it in time, right? So we have to build out this whole process. And it's expensive. It's going to cost $4 million to do. But with that platform that we're developing with UMass Chain Medical School, it can be applicable to other rare diseases as well. That is down to like a single gene mutation, not to get technical. But again, it goes back to like, hey, we can save our son. We can help so many other kids. But because it's, the disease is so rare, at the end of the day, like, I hate to say, I'm going to be blunt, no one gives a damn. It's not as sexy as other diseases where it's like, oh, I get it. It's cancer, it's heart disease, it's diabetes. No, don't get me wrong. All diseases are important. But when your son is suffering something so rare and no one gives a damn, it sucks. So we wanted to do something different that'll catch media attention, to catch people's attention. And by doing something that's Mortal Kombat related, which I know most charity stay away from, can hopefully bring that attention and raise that awareness that we need to get the treatment. And it's a real treatment, right? So a lot of times you fund charity, it's a great story, but you don't know where your money goes, right? You don't know what the outcome is. With this, you can follow our journey. You can follow our outcome. You can see that we're creating a treatment. That's what difference about us and what we're doing. You can see my race against time to save my son, and fingers crossed that'll work at the end of the day.
It's interesting because, Tommy first reached out to me on LinkedIn after we had a business call, just talking about some other stuff, but he ended up explaining the story to me, and it immediately resonated with me for the sheer fact that I'm a father, and just hearing that story and talking about, we ended up bonding, talking about our common interests and stuff that we like. But again, the race against time is really what resonated with me. And we're like, hey, if there's anything that we can do as the fighting game community, or if there's anything that we can do through Evo, or if there's anything that we can do to kind of help bring awareness to this, let me know. I'd love to help. We ended up talking. Tommy made it out to Evo. We played a trailer building awareness for the foundation through the event. But I wanted to ask you guys, like, when Tommy reached out to you guys, what made you guys want to, or what compelled you guys to be able to want to help? Justin, do you want to comment on that first?
Yeah, so I met Tommy at Evo. You introduced me to him, and then I met Tommy and his wife, and he was pretty much telling me the story. And as a dad, it really resonates, just because now I'm just very emotional when it comes to just parenting things, anything parent related. I don't know if my emotions changed or not, but it definitely did, right? So that's kind of really the main reasons, because I just love kids, and I always want kids to be happy. Kids are the future. I never want to be I never want anybody to be in a situation where if Raiden has a shorter life expectancy, I want Raiden to live longer than obviously Tommy, his dad. That should happen. It should always be like that. That's kind of the cycle of life. And if I can help, I really do want to help. It's very important to me, just because I'm a dad, he's a dad, everyone's a dad. And I'm being emotional too, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to add to something. It's pretty brutal, Justin, when I tell people I'm comfortable because I'm living this. It's like, when you talk about fatality, you talk about Mortal Kombat, it's like, hey, fatality is brutal, right? It's gory, but nothing compares to fatality that we're going through as a family. It's like, here's my fatality. I will bury my son before me, foregoing any circumstance and any accident. that will happen. That is fate, and we're working on to change that fate. And hopefully, by fighting that fate, we can change the fate for other kids as well. That is the journey that we're on, unfortunately.
And then Max, any particular reason that stuck out to you about the joining and helping?
Yeah, and I think it eventually just reached around, between marketing agencies and my ad agencies and stuff like that. I heard about this, and you immediately hear the cause and stuff like that. And even though we've been a part of several wonderful charitable organizations over these years that have raised a lot of money for kids between St. Jude's and everything like that, once you hear a personal story like this, it's something that is, you feel an obligation, right? And especially if you have like a platform, this is like me, where it's like goofy Spider-Man stuff, like great power, great responsibility, BS fluff. But really, if you have the opportunity to create awareness with something, and you are a parent, and you've been lucky enough to be blessed with a child, that is just a relatively uneventful childhood by all comparative standards, I almost feel like we're obligated to help people that are going through like what Tommy and his family are going through. Because as much as we want to fix these situations, we just want everyone else to experience parenthood in the same way that we do. So that's sort of the thing that reached to me immediately, was just, this is something that we can build awareness for, and why not? Like there's zero reason why we shouldn't be here to be helping out people like in this situation. So yeah, for Tommy and his family and anybody else that has to go through such a rare genetic illness or illness in general, where they have to watch their kids go through stuff, it's the most sympathetic situation in the world to want to do something.
Absolutely.
Max.
Tommy, I got to ask you then, we're the fighting game community. We what we're good at is fighting. And one of the things that we're going to do, and we've been able to do in the past as well, is to help many charitable organizations try to get through as much as they can to be able to not only raise awareness, but also make a difference. I have to ask you in particular, how has the fighting game community been so far in supporting the cause?
Oh man, the community has been awesome. Again, I mentioned I play a lot of fight games, but I've never been really part of this community because I've never played competitively. Look, I didn't meet you, Mark, Justin, Max just tonight. Justin, just 4 months ago. Mark, we talked on the phone a couple times, maybe 6-7 months ago. But the community just rally around and just wanting help, and just on behalf of my wife and myself, it's like we're super grateful. We've gone so far, and I don't think we would have done it with this kombat4rare thing without the fighting game community and with the with people's support, especially you, Mark.
So I want to ask, we're getting close towards the end of our special podcast, but to get a little bit more focus into this, we have the kombat4rare event that's going to be happening at the end of this month. So I hope everyone is able to tune in, watch the streamers that are supporting it leading up to that. But I want to ask each and every one of you guys here, is there a message that you want to say to anybody, whether they're a fighting game fan or someone that's just paying attention because of the awareness of what we're trying to do? Is there any message that you just want to convey based on everything that we've discussed today? I guess I'll start real quick and just say, hey, man, everyone is going through a lot of things, especially, with the pandemic in the past few years. But it's times like this where we get together and we kind of fight for a certain cause. And this cause in particular, we want to save Brayden's life. And I think the focus there and spreading awareness, where not only could it save his life, but maybe save the lives of many other kids that might have to go through this, and many other families that have to go through this. I hope you guys just are cognizant of that and kind of pay attention. If you guys have an opportunity to help support, then great. If not, spreading awareness is key. So I hope you guys really take that into consideration as we spend our days and our weeks leading up to this event. And I hope that you guys, again, just can pay attention and help support in any way. Justin, do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just obviously, like Mar said, life is tough. It's not easy. But the one thing that really helps us adults, just in general, to get through things is just a child's smile, right? Smile, their happiness, and I really want Raiden to keep smiling. Definitely, so Tommy and his wife doesn't have to worry about it, and other kids out there, because as a dad, if it would be so, it's just so hurtful. I'm not going through what Tommy's going, but him telling us his story, and it it really breaks my heart. And I'm always talking to Tommy, and I always want to help him even more. I've been working with him already, and I just want everyone to really, if you guys can, just like, there are so many of us in the world. Like, if everyone donated $1, we would easily hit $1 million. It's just that simple. So if you guys are listening out there, please think about just supporting the cause, and making sure that Raiden really lives as the God of Thunder as he should be. Please.
Max, any comments here?
Yeah, and I think that overall message, as far as like how community reacts and what a community actually is, and between the fighting game community being a bunch of people that are into like tournaments or competitive fighting games, it really boils back to a much wider scope of just the people that love fighting games. And the nice thing about it is that in many opportunities that I've seen over the past 10 plus years, when people need help, people show up. And that is one of the most powerful aspects of what we know as our fighting game community, is that when people need help and are truly like suffering, people usually are pretty generous and charitable in those situations. So I'm more than happy and willing to expose people to some of these situations and build awareness that this exists, because whether or not Tommy has been like a fighting game tournament player or anything like that, that's not really important. The thing that ties us together is Mortal Kombat. The thing that ties us together is that we love these characters, we love these franchises, we love these games. And if we could sympathize with somebody else that loves the same stuff we do, then we can sympathize with their plight, that Tommy just wants to be a dad here. And that is something that I think almost anyone can sympathize with. So, I mean, we have your back. And I'd like to say that we're going to get as much awareness of this as possible to help out other parents that just want to be parents as well.
Yeah, we definitely will. Tommy, any closing remarks here?
Yeah, just wanted to throw some stats about rare disease out there so that everybody's aware, because this is all about raising awareness. There are 7,000 different rare diseases, right, affecting 400 million people worldwide. It's a lot. Half of that are kids. So 200 million are kids. 30% of that, which is 60 million of the kid, will not live to see their 5th birthday, right? My son, this disease, UBA5, falls in that category of kids not seeing past their 5th birthday. 80% of those rare disease impacting those kids are caused by genetic defects. So in theory, through gene therapy, which is the journey that we're on, the platform that we're creating, it can be solved in the future. It's just unfortunate that my family is sort of blazing the path for this. But hopefully by doing it, we can create a playbook and a way forward. Just because a kid is diagnosed with an ultra-rare disease doesn't mean it has to be a death sentence years from now, right? Just imagine your grandkids being affected by a rare disease because of the journey that we're going through. There will be a treatment. And most people can say, hey, Tommy's just doing this because his son is impacted and he's just trying to tell a story. He doesn't really care about the kids. Well, even before the pandemic, yeah, I had my full-time job, but I also co-founded the Children's Cancer Therapy Development Institute. We have 2 drugs in clinical trials for childhood cancers. I always cared for kids. I did that out of my own goodwill. I did not get paid. It just absolutely sucked that it happened, that my son has the rarest of rare. But I'm going to save my son. I'm going to be on this journey, and I'm going to save so many other kids, and I need the community support behind me. So if you can, please spread awareness about this cause. Donate $1, like Justin said. Like everybody donate $1. It can make a big difference, right? Like Mortal Kombat 11 sold what, 12 million copies? $1 each, that's 12 million. We can do a lot with that. So I'll leave it with that.
So just wanted to bring some awareness. Make sure you guys follow the Twitter account, kombat4rare. There are charity streams that are happening between now and the 29th of October. And of course, you guys got to make sure you join us for kombat4rare Day on October the 30th. It'll be on twitch.tv/kombat4rare. We have a fun-filled day filled with, just spreading awareness, but also tournaments and competitions, and then some cool prizes as well for everyone that's going to be watching and participating. Guys, Max, Justin, Tommy, thanks for coming together and really talking about not only being dads, being gamers, but also, again, us getting ready for this fight where we have to save Raiden's life and everybody else's lives that may be impacted by this. That's it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Take care.